Yeah, what's up? It's Kyle here. Power scaling. It's pretty dumb. I'm saying this as an ex-power scaler, and this reason is why I actually quit power scaling. So, I was casually reading One Piece, and Garp, use Galaxy Impact, which is, close to destroying an island, I'd say, if we highball it. But, this shown as really impressive. But it's not even reaching island level. And even lower power scalings are showing One Piece characters to be country level at this point in the story. So what is happening here? Why it's low ball country level despite not even being island level? Which I know some islands may be bigger than countries, but listen, we are talking here in power scaling terms. That's a rough estimate, and on average countries are bigger than islands. Don't try to put me this.
Countries.
This isn't important. You don't need to explain this. You got the idea. Deku isn't planetary, alright. Deku isn't planetary level. Most fights take place on city level scale, and the biggest feat that pretty much Shigaraki did is getting hit by a nuke in terms of durability. So to scale Deku's attacks, it's biggest nukes are island level or so. And y'all are scaling this to country level. Cause the moment you need to pull out cards and can't just show a panel and show someone which will definitely show them that this is definitely this, then it's when it starts getting completely bullshit. But this part of the video is just talking about cards. Later I'm going to say stuff that makes power scaling look even stupider. To this day, I see power scaling edits of people saying that Toji hiders Maki. If you don't know anything about Culling games, essentially it was straight up stated in Culling games that Maki is Toji's equal at this point. And since then, she could have grown even stronger in power during Sukuna fight. And I remind you, Toji had a worm filled with cursed spirits and cursed tools. And Maki only had a sword. These people are just insane. Also Miguel. Miguel is the only sorcerer that was capable of outspeeding Sukuna. He's objectively the fastest character, and in terms of power, he's the third strongest. Gary himself said that the fight with Gojo versus Miguel was close. And the oldest beef of this is Zoro versus Sanji. Since Little Garden, if you actually read Little Garden, you know that they should be close in power.
Actually, Zoro fights stronger opponents.
Let's not lie. Let's not pretend that Sanji fights his opponents with way less difficulty. They are weaker. But it's way easier for him. And they are acting every time Zoro extreme diffs a character, Sanji also extreme diffs a character. No, he didn't have much of a hard time fighting Queen. Come on, both of them parallel Dory and Brogy. It was set up since Little Garden that they will be equals the whole time. Even if Oda himself said, you'd still argue. Most of the problem comes down to favoritism, right? But there is cross-verse favoritism for exactly the same stuff. The exact same feat will be scaled differently. Butler and other characters from Umineko can play around with laws of reality, which makes them hyper-versatile apparently. Alright, but SCP-5650 and the Weaver are scaled to Boundless here because of the exact same stuff. But not gonna lie, this also happens the opposite way. The thing is scaled, no matter what kind of power it is, it gets scaled to insane degree just because it's related to this power, and in some other verse this power is way more strong. You see this guy called Caperis, right? He sucks off Murphy Lawton too much. He sucks off this guy at every single occasion. His thing is plot manipulation. He can turn technically a part of reality into a book. The part of reality isn't all of the planet, or isn't even a big chunk. It's roughly, let's estimate, a city area in which he can manipulate events, but only to some extent, right? And only to some extent, like, you see nobody, right? He cannot, like, immediately defeat nobody or anything. Nobody literally let him defeat him. Otherwise, Murphy would not be able to defeat nobody. But he still gets scaled over nobody. And nobody gets scaled to also create the ridiculous stuff just because he was able to keep up with Murphy. Because both of them are overscaled. Like, nobody is literally just a background character everywhere. Nobody was this strong only because he had like this glove that allows him to manipulate probability and change probability of everything to 99%, I think. I get scaled to this level because SCP-3812, I think, scales way higher. Like, he has the same ability but is way crazier. Like, Capetus does acknowledge that his ability is stronger, but he still overplays Murphy's ability. And I'm going to tell you, SCP fandom is like so oversaturated with power scales. Like, unless something is like really goofy, it has no way of being pretty much written well if it's strong. Like, it can happen, but it's like really, really rare. Like, more popular thing is like just terrible SCPs, but I've seen an SCP so horrible. Like, you know, there's this SCP, this is not the horrible SCP, it's actually a pretty cool concept, which is called SCP-4028, and it's basically Don Quixote, you know? The whole point of Don Quixote is that Don Quixote in his original book was just an insane man, and, well, here he is a metafictional being that essentially makes, like, the scenarios from Don Quixote's dreams come to the reality of the piece of fiction that he inhabits. It's just a really cool thing, you know, because Don Quixote was a dreamer, though he was delusional, so it's pretty cool, because Don Quixote, even when he died, like, Don Quixote is just an amazing book, you should read it. But the whole thing is that his imagination, his insanity is coming to reality pretty much, alright? But then there is SCP-160-PT, and it's the most horrible SCP I've seen in my life. Like, this guy is just made for power scaling, it's just made for power scaling. It's pretty much a copy of Don Quixote. It's a copy of Don Quixote that says that that copy defeated Don Quixote. No, but like the Don Quixote inside of the story, not the actual metafictional other Don Quixote, just the Don Quixote within the story. But the author, I think, thought that Don Quixote was some sort of really strong knight and didn't actually read Don Quixote. So this author essentially for power scaling just picked King Arthur and essentially said, see my King Arthur, that is basically a complete copy of Don Quixote, but King Arthur instead of that is stronger than the Don Quixote guy. But the author is like made such a stupid mistake of scaling him to the normal Don Quixote, which is just an insane old man that gets defeated by pretty much everyone, just to scale him over the other Don Quixote that is an SCP. Like, oh god, this is just such a terrible mistake. This is just so terrible. It was painful to read. And even though this is an OC, even bigger thing with SCP power scaling is how fandom uses the Chinese wiki, so-called. Like, I'm going to tell you, people just love the Chinese wiki, but don't actually read it. Because, like, I see power scaling edits with this, and I'm, like, wondering, oh, this guy is strong, maybe I'll read this guy's story. But when I actually try to read the story, I either, one, can't find it, or find out that whatever was shown in the edit or said or stated is just a lie. Like, you know, SCP-160 and 160-PT exist. These aren't the versions of the same SCP, but from a different canon. These are two separate SCPs, they are two separate characters. When you add a language thing to them, or like J, aka Joke SCP, this is a different SCP. It just shares the same number, but it doesn't share the same letter because these are different SCPs that have different names, different properties, different everything, alright? These aren't like alternate versions. Like, let me check out. Like SCP-40, for example, is a child that evolves. Like, it's a mutated child called the evolution child. But SCP-40-JP is a shack somewhere. And if you go into that shack, you start hallucinating stuff when you look at cats. And become obsessed with the thing that there's a cat in the shack. Alright. But now, people will put characters like SCP-2727, which is basically a being that erases narratives, and just add CN, and then claim that it's a Chinese version of the same SCP. No! SCP-2727 CN would be a different SCP. SCP-2727 CN is actually written in Russian, and it's called Good Man in Russian. I don't know why is it in Russian, but whatever. Still, it's not Anafabula. It's not. It's a different SCP. Don't say that it's something on CN side and then add CN at the end of any SCP just to claim that they're broken, alright? We know. Anybody with a brain knows that you're making this up. You're making this shit up. It's obvious. Like for example, there's this SCP-2747, right? And it's basically a being that erases narratives and stuff. But then they add CN and say that it's some sort of alternate version from the Chinese side, which we already established it's a lie, right? There's no SCP-2747 on Chinese side. There's no version of that SCP anywhere on the Chinese side. Like honestly, SCP power scalers actually read SCP wiki for once. Challenge 100% impossible. So I better not hear anybody saying again,
I think that is somewhere on the Chinese side.
no, it's not on the Chinese side. It's probably not. Also with the Scarlet King, no, there's no super Chinese Scarlet King. It all was based on a poem about the Scarlet King, which, as far as I understood from reading it myself and later reading and later listening to other people's interpretation of it, if anything, this would scale Scarlet King down and not say that he is some super meta being, alright? So never, never again say that you believe it's somewhere on the Chinese side. It's not. Spoiler, it's not on the Chinese side. Everybody thinks that they exist, but no, they're not. Anybody who reads knows that they're not real, that they're not on the wiki. Stop trying to gaslight everyone into thinking that your idea that haven't gotten past SCP Sandbox is an actual entry on the wiki, because it will only exist within your power scaling circles, and outside of them, nobody will know of them because they're not real. Actually learn how to write and then make a well-written SCP. You can make it strong, but actually write it. But probably since you get off to having your SCP be super powerful, some sort of super turbo god, you probably can't write for shit. And the last one is an absolute cancer tumor called verse equalization. And what is it? It's basically just bias towards your verse. Alright? Let's example say that characters from Bleach have to fight characters from other verses, right? Like characters from Bleach are ghosts and cannot be touched with anything that isn't like manipulating spirit, right? So nothing can pretty much hurt them, like Rock Lee wouldn't be able to hurt Ichigo or even see him probably, you know? That's pretty logical. But verse equalizers will say that we need to make them interact to make the fight any interesting or whatever. Right, but these are innate hacks of Soul Reapers and Hollows. You do realize that, like, not every character in Bleach has this. All characters have spiritual pressure, which is enough of a defensive barrier to defeat them from pretty much most melee warriors, but it's a feature, not a bug, that they have this. Like for example, Quincy, can be normally hit, even though you need to get through their spirit pressure first. They can be normally hit since they're just humans, but Soul Reapers are ghosts. It's like taking Sharingan from Sasuke because he's an Uchiha. Alright, but Sharingan doesn't block them from touching stuff. Alright, this is like removing infinity from Gojo pretty much. because it makes him untouchable, right? But wait, what if we think about like stats? About raw stats, right? If someone is like so defensive that they cannot be hurt pretty much by another character, or they can regenerate too fast, so the other character can't touch them, do we remove that ability from them? No. The whole thing with power scaling, why I got into power scaling to begin with, is because I thought that these matchups with different power systems, different stuff, would be interesting, right? Like, alright, you would need someone who has like soul-rated abilities to even fight Soul Reapers, so Soul Reapers would defeat these guys pretty much, and stuff like this. The idea of how the abilities interact with each other is what drew me to power scaling, and just saying that Asta's anti-magic sword like literally destroys pretty much everything it touches, even though it was even shown in Black Clover that there are ways to like make Asta's sword not work on stuff, provided this isn't like precisely magic that they use. Like thinking which abilities, like for example Curse Energy from Jujutsu Kaisen and Reiatsu from Bleach, they could interact because they work like really similarly. So yeah, these could work. Alright, that's pretty interesting. And they just remove stuff that makes it inconvenient from them to scale. Like, if it's inconvenient for their verse, for their favorite verse, they will like literally just negate stuff from this. This is like removing most stuff from like Dragon Ball. It's like removing Ki from Goku just because he's too durable to hit him. Like I already said this, but just I want to put it into perspective to you. Alright, I think that this is enough of my little tangent about power scaling. I hope that this video is a banger. And since I'm a shill, I'll tell you to like and subscribe. Cause my dream is having enough money to survive and working from home. Which, well, YouTube can provide me. And yeah, I must say that this is a dream. Just so you'll be more likely to click because like, oh, he's so dedicated to a dream or whatever, like a shonen protagonist or whatever. I'm just doing whatever other YouTubers do, I'm just transparent about this. Anyways, bye.